Welcome to the Bullvine Podcast, your go-to source for inside stories, cutting-edge research, and the latest updates in the world of dairy farming. For the 68 episode, we discover how Trump's policies could shape the future of U.S. dairy. So please grab a glass of milk, sit back, and let's get started with this week's episode.
Could the resurgence of Trump's hardline trade and immigration policies upend the balance that U.S. dairy farmers have worked so diligently to maintain? With Trump's second presidency, the stakes are higher than ever for the dairy industry, a cornerstone of American agriculture. The moment we let our guard down, the ripple effects of trade wars and labor shortages could push us to the brink, warns Tony Rice, U.S. DEC Trade Policy Director. From looming hefty tariffs on exports to potential crackdowns on immigrant labor, these policies aren't just political maneuvers. They threaten the delicate dynamics of the U.S. dairy sector. Dairy professionals nationwide brace for disruptions affecting everything from market access to daily operations. The key to overcoming these challenges lies in proactive measures. Are we prepared for these challenges, or will we face uncertainty at a crossroads?
In President Trump's first term, the America First trade approach was a double-edged sword for the U.S. dairy industry. While it aimed to bolster domestic producers, it also led to significant challenges, mainly through the imposition of tariffs. Take, for example, the retaliatory tariffs placed by China on U.S. dairy exports. As Tony Rice, U.S. DEC Trade Policy Director, pointed out, these tariffs on cheese, whey products, and milk powders reached 25% to 27.5%. This severely impacted U.S. dairy exporters, who had begun to find promising markets in China. Throughout Trump's first term, U.S. dairy exports notably faced mixed results. While the America First stance sought to create new opportunities, the immediate fallout from tariff wars was challenging to ignore. Dairy products like lactose and whey protein concentrate, although lower in tariffs, 5 to 10%, still faced hurdles that complicated international market access. Yet, it wasn't all bleak. There were strategic wins, such as negotiations that led to the China Phase 1 agreement, which, according to Rice, tackled non-tariff barriers for dairy. This agreement opened doors by suspending some retaliatory tariffs, albeit with a lingering threat of their return. Nevertheless, weighing these dual outcomes is crucial, considering a potential rerun of these policies. The health of the dairy industry hinges on navigating this complex trade landscape and finding a balance between maintaining market access and protecting domestic interests. Will history repeat itself, or is there room for a more nuanced approach?
The U.S. dairy export landscape, a critical aspect of the agricultural economy, remains robust yet fraught with challenges. As of September 2024, dairy exports have experienced slight growth compared to the previous year, with cheese and dry whey products showing notable increases of 19% and 9%, respectively. However, non-fat and skim milk powder exports have declined by 6%. With Trump at the helm for another term, trade policies could veer toward aggressive tariff negotiations similar to those of his first administration. Renewed talks with China and the EU could be on the cards, opening doors to better access or grappling with retaliatory measures reminiscent of past trade wars. China, a vital market, had previously imposed steep tariffs on U.S. dairy, a scenario that might re-emerge if negotiations take a wrong turn. Relations with Canada remain complicated. The dispute over Canada's dairy import quotas continues to be thorny. U.S. dairy stakeholders are eager for a resolution that favors American exports. Trump's penchant for renegotiation could bring new dynamics to this northward relationship. On the prospects of new markets, Trump's administration might rekindle talks with the UK and explore further opportunities in Southeast Asia, regions previously highlighted for their potential. Given their growing demand for dairy products, Southeast Asia, particularly Indonesia and Vietnam, offers fertile ground for expanding U.S. dairy's footprint. These markets should improve in the forthcoming years.
In the heart of the U.S. dairy industry lies an often overlooked yet critical backbone: immigrant labor. According to National Milk Producers Federation research, immigrants comprise more than half of the workforce, accounting for 51% of dairy labor. Their contribution is staggering, Dairies that employ immigrant labor produce a whopping 79% of the U.S. milk supply. But what happens if these vital workers are no longer available due to stringent immigration policies? Under Trump's administration, the focus has been on deporting undocumented immigrants, a move that could spell disaster for labor-reliant sectors like dairy. Suppose these policies lead to a labor exodus. In that case, the National Milk Producers Federation warns of dire consequences: a reduction of the U.S. dairy herd by 2.1 million cows, a drop in milk production by nearly 50 billion pounds, and the shuttering of over 7,000 farms. This domino effect would not just touch those directly involved, but echo through the economy, possibly driving retail milk prices up by 90.4% and slicing the U.S. economic output by $32.1 billion, with over 200,000 jobs on the line. Joseph Glauber, a senior research fellow at the International Food Policy Research Institute, sheds light on the complexities of immigration reform. Immigrants supply at least half of fired labor for the dairy industry, Glauber notes. Yet the dairy sector cannot tap into temporary worker programs designed for time-bound harvest tasks, as dairy demands year-round labor. This regulatory gap underscores the urgent need for tailored immigration reform, a politico-economic terrain fraught with division. As Glauber puts it, historical attempts to pass reform have been thwarted by partisan opposition over broader immigration issues, leaving sectors like dairy in a lurch. A hardline stance on immigration threatens to disrupt the labor supply. It also risks altering the participants' perceptions of the U.S. as a viable workplace, potentially driving operational costs up due to wage inflation. This precarious balance requires thoughtful policy tailoring. With it, the U.S. dairy industry can handle a labor shortage and an existential challenge.
The economic ripples from trade and immigration policies under a renewed Trump administration could potentially churn the already tumultuous waters of the U.S. dairy industry. Imposing high tariffs on key trading partners like China and Mexico might be a short-term bump and a long-lasting tremor threatening the industry's economic stability. Any disruption in these established trade relationships could mean a significant loss of market share, especially in high-demand regions dependent on U.S. exports, further exacerbating price volatility across the sector. Even a slight tremor can send shockwaves from producers to consumers in the intricate web of the global dairy supply chain. With its deeply integrated supply networks, the North American market is particularly vulnerable to potential trade barriers. Tariffs could unravel these intricate networks, leading to logistical challenges, increased delivery times, and a spike in operational overheads. This would pressure U.S. exporters to remain competitive, potentially necessitating cuts elsewhere, including in labor. Speaking of labor, the backbone of U.S. dairy heavily leans on immigrant workers. Should the Trump administration enforce stringent immigration reforms targeting undocumented labor, the dairy industry might be shorthanded. This shortage wouldn't just slow production, but push wage demands higher, further straining dairy farmers' already tight profit margins. Compounded by potential tariff escalations and retaliatory trade policies, operational costs for dairies could see a notable increase, which might get passed down to the consumer, potentially impacting milk prices at the retail level. The cumulative effect of these factors paints a sobering picture for the sector. It's a complex chain reaction. Tariffs disrupt exports, leading to potential market losses and supply chain chaos, while immigration policies strain labor availability and hike operational costs. For U.S. dairy farmers, these policy paths could signify turbulence and a seismic shift, needing strategic pivots to sustain the industry's growth and profitability. The stakes are high. Dairy leaders and policymakers must consider these potential economic impacts carefully to prevent a downturn in one of America's core agricultural sectors.
As we unravel the complexities of Trump's trade and immigration policies, it becomes increasingly clear that the U.S. dairy industry is poised for uncertainty and potential disruption. From the intricate dance of international trade agreements to the integral role of immigrant labor, these factors cast a long shadow over the industry's stability. We must ask ourselves, are we prepared to navigate the turbulent waters of a trade war with key partners like China and Mexico? How will the tightening grip on immigrant labor reshape the workforce essential to dairy production. The possibility of increased tariffs demands our immediate attention and strategic foresight to ensure the long-term viability of our efforts. As industry stakeholders, we must actively engage in dialogue and advocate for policies that protect and promote our interests. Should we not leverage our collective voice to drive meaningful immigration reform and negotiate fair trade agreements? Our actions today will set the course for the future of dairy in America. I challenge you to ponder these questions. What proactive measures can we implement to fortify our industry's foundation? How can we foster resilience amidst political and economic shifts? Let us not only reflect, but also act, for the welfare of U.S. dairy is in our hands.
Thank you for tuning in to the Bullvine Podcast. We hope you enjoyed today's insightful discussion. Don't forget to subscribe, share, and leave a review. Catch you next time on the Bullvine Podcast, where bovine expertise and community come together.